afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's webinar. I would like to remind you that this conference is being recorded. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. For those connected by telephone requiring operator assistance during the call, please press *0. Web participants requiring support should use the chat feature on your screen. I would now like to turn the meeting over to your moderator for today, Ms. Kay Phillips, Senior Director at the Canadian Foundation for Healthcare Improvement. Please go ahead, Ms. Phillips.
Thanks so much, Val. Hello to everyone and welcome to part 3 of our on-call series Data Bootcamp, How to Get Your Data into Shape. I'm Kay Phillips, Senior Director here at CFHI, and I'm so pleased to be your host today as we present the third and the final session in this 3-part series, which will focus on effective data quality management. Now, throughout this series, we've been pleased to have more than 600 registrants throughout. As I introduce our guest speakers, please do take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat box if you haven't done so, who you are, where you're from, as well as any questions you have at the get-go. Joining us today are Trevor Strong, who has nearly 2 decades of healthcare informatics and analytics development experience. In his current role at the Winnipeg Regional Health Authority Emergency Programs, Trevor leads the development and implementation of informatics and analytics tools for use in healthcare quality and performance improvement initiatives. He's also an assistant professor with the Department of Emergency Medicine at the University of Manitoba, where he participates on clinical and operations research projects and lectures on topics relating to data science, informatics, and quality improvement. Also joining us is Melanie Rathgeber, a CFHI measurement coach and president of Merge Consulting, which specializes in using data for quality improvement. Melanie's improvement experience spans a variety of healthcare sectors, including primary care, mental health, and acute care. Melanie led improvement and measurement initiatives at 2 provincial quality councils, Saskatchewan and BC, and more recently switched her focus to mental health, where she worked firsthand with staff and patients to measure and improve quality of care. We're also so thankful for our producers, Sheena Powell and Kelly Ripley, operating behind the scenes today here in Ottawa. Once again, we're pleased to provide our webinar materials in English and French. French materials have been circulated out to participants in advance of the call. So if you don't receive the slide deck or associated materials, don't worry, we will send them out after the webinar. I'd now like to hand it over to Trevor, who will get us started on thinking about effective strategies for data quality management. Trevor?
All right, well, thank you very much, Kay, and welcome to everybody. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today and what particular time zone. Very happy to be here for part 3 of our series on data quality. In general, the points that we're going to cover today include why data quality management and data quality management policies are important and how to implement them in your organization. We're going to look at the attributes of effective data quality management policies and procedures, including a bit on security and privacy. We're going to look at the roles and responsibilities of data stewards and what part they play in managing data quality. And we're going to look at how to effectively manage data across an organization. So to kick things off, we would actually like to know a little bit more about you. In particular, we'd like to know if the organization that you're with employs ongoing data quality monitoring and improvement processes. So we would ask that you type your responses into the chat box, and we look forward to seeing what you have to say, and perhaps Melanie can touch on a few points during her comments. So I'll just give you a few seconds to enter in some information on what data quality monitoring and improvement processes your healthcare organization uses. So as a recap, I would like to touch on the 5-point data quality management cycle that was introduced during the last session. The 5 key points, as you can see on the cycle, consist of define, validate, deploy, manage, and improve. The first points, define, validate, and deploy, we discussed in the last seminar, and today we're going to be speaking about manage and improve. However, just as a recap, define is the stage where we identify our various sources of data, such as our source systems and their various data fields. we define the various data properties, business rules, and validation rules that are associated with looking at data quality. The next point in this cycle is validate, and this is where we create the relevant data quality metrics, we develop the processes and tools to scan the data, and build the data quality profile reports that compare metrics against our baseline. And the last point that we discussed on the data quality management cycle last week was deploy. And the deployment phase is where we focus on developing data systems that enable high quality and usable, that means well-documented, data to be available to and reliable for the stakeholders who need to access and use the data contained within the system. So those are the 3 points that we talked about in the last seminar. And today, like I said, we're going to be focusing on the management and the improve phases. So management of data quality implies an ongoing effort to monitor and improve data quality. We want to get out of sort of break fixes or emergency fixes. And by engaging in ongoing management, it helps us ensure that the best possible data is available for improvement initiatives. And what management involves is continuously checking the data quality and validity. And this means that we would have established baseline data quality levels, as well as we would continue to monitor data quality trends over time as we engage in our quality improvement initiatives. Part of this is to conduct data quality gap analyses where we see maybe repeated types of data quality issues. We want to be able to have a systematic approach to look at those issues and deal with them so they do not continue to repeat. So part of that prevention is the development and implementation of various mitigation strategies that we're going to look at. And finally, to enable sort of the whole management to become systematized, to make sure that data quality is an organizational priority, we need to work within our organizations to establish clear policies and the procedures that go along with those policies that do recognize that data quality is important, because as we know, information and data is becoming one of our highest valued assets within healthcare organizations. And just like any other high value asset, we need to protect that asset, protect that investment in information that we've got. So in order to help us establish baseline data quality, we would develop a baseline data quality report similar to this one. Now this one might look familiar to you because we did cover it in session 2, but this type of data quality report can be a useful tool in the continuous monitoring of data quality when we use it to establish a baseline level of data. So we know what our key data quality metrics are, we know how we're measuring them, and we can report on them in a system like this so we know what our data quality looks like. And then when we have a good sense of what our baseline data quality is, we can use that information to help identify what data quality targets need to be. So where do we need to go in terms of improving our data quality, especially if our data quality levels are unsatisfactory. If we do have satisfactory data quality levels, then we can just continue to monitor that to ensure that we do not have a deterioration in data quality. So if we look at this next chart here then, what this represents is a reporting tool or a sample of a reporting tool that we can use to monitor ongoing performance. This is a sample report that I've put together for you that illustrates how data quality on key data items may fluctuate over time. So even when we have, so what this chart shows is some of our data quality metrics for completeness and validity of our triage acuity score in the emergency department and our discharge diagnosis completeness and validity. And you can see how these values trend over time. So this report here is actually based on a report that I built and used within our own business intelligence tool. What I've done is, for illustration purposes, I've exaggerated some of the values and some of the differences. But if you have a system that you can program such validation and data quality rules into, then developing a monthly report similar to this can be straightforward. But what this allows us to do is trend our data quality over time so that we can identify if we're starting to see a trend in increasing or decreasing data quality, or as you might see in the triage acuity where we have that little blip downwards in June 2015, it may be something that you need to annotate in your reporting or other types of systems if there's a major system error like an ADT or other system failure that would maybe cause certain gaps in data quality. But as we're going to discuss a little bit later, you should focus on your most important data first. First of all, by focusing on our most important data quality metrics, it will provide decision makers with the high quality information they need. But second of all, by focusing on those key data items, it will keep the number of data quality metrics that we need to monitor to a manageable and an actionable level. So this is just one example of what a data quality monitoring report can look like. So what we want to be able to do is to continually monitor data quality in a systematic way that will hopefully allow us to catch minor issues before they become major issues. So when we're monitoring ongoing data quality, the data quality issues that we encounter are best managed in, like I said, a systematic and repeatable manner. And what this allows us to do is avoid repeat work and do-overs. So we're not fixing the same issues over and over again. We can come up with solutions that help us fix these issues once and for all. We want to prevent introducing new issues with poor fixes. So if we go in and do a rapid fix to one data quality issue, we want to make sure that that is not actually clobbering something else. We want to be able to maximize organizational learning. So by diving into our root causes of data quality issues, we can instill this learning in our front-end users who are inputting data into the system. We can instill this into the data managers, database analysts who are working with the processing and storage of the data, as well as the analysts who are working with this data. And then what happens if we have a systematic and ongoing data quality monitoring process? Data quality management becomes part of the data life cycle. So rather than just the input, processing, and output, data quality management becomes something that we look at. And a theme I'm going to sort of repeat during this presentation involves managing data quality improvement, much like you would manage other healthcare improvement initiatives. But what this does is actually requires organizational discipline and structure so that we avoid reverting back to the break-fix mode. So if we don't, within the organization, work to make data quality a systematized approach, then what's going to happen is we're going to revert back to, oh, we noticed a data quality issue, something happened, we got to fix it, and then we get back into this break-fix mode, which then leads us to doing repeated work, and we never really solve our root issues. So an important supplement then to the regular data quality reporting that we would do, say, with our data quality report, is a system for logging, tracking, and managing data quality issues. So if we implement a system for logging and tracking these incidences, what we need to do is we need to focus on an approach which is appropriate for the size and needs of your organization. So if you are a small group with a small single-purpose data set, something like an Excel spreadsheet or even a Word document where you can manage these data quality issues, is probably going to be sufficient for your purposes. Whereas if you're responsible for data quality for a very large organization, you may need to scale up to something like a automated incident management system that your health IT group may be able to help you out with. But the bottom line is that when we do ongoing data quality monitoring, we need to be able to assign responsibility to an individual or a team of individuals to monitor this tracking system, to monitor our data quality within the data sets that we have. And as we're going to find out a little bit later, usually this would be the data steward that would have this responsibility. So when we're engaging in ongoing data quality monitoring, there is a certain amount of information that we actually need to capture to properly document these data quality issues. And so obviously for each incident that we arrive at, when we notice something awry in our database, or when we get a phone call from somebody saying, there's a data issue, what we need to do is we actually need to specify what that data quality issue is. What are we seeing? Are we seeing gaps in data? Are we seeing incorrect data? We need to identify the location. So where is this data held? Is it in some sort of source system? What database field is it? Where can we find it so we can dive a little bit deeper and try to get a sense of what type of data quality issue we're dealing with? And then, if possible at this stage, work on determining the root cause, so looking at the data quality and trying to see if it's something like a user error, or if it's improper data validation on input, or any sort of root cause that might be leading to these type of data quality issues from occurring. The benefits of having a systematic process in place for data quality incident tracking include spotting recurrent trends. A lot of times, like I said, we see the same things over and over again, and we want to implement processes and mitigation strategies to reduce those from happening. We want to be able to detect emerging trends. So suddenly, if we see one of our data fields start to trend negatively in terms of data quality, say for example, data items are missing, or we're seeing poor validation results, it will help us spot something, and then it will help us to direct mitigation appropriate action. So if maybe sometimes it's just do it, maybe we can fix something very quickly with some user training, for example, or maybe we need to have a large-scale mitigation effort because on our source system, perhaps the validation rules are incorrect or out of date. So by documenting these issues, identifying what the root causes are, or starting to look into that, help us determine what we need to do next. So a mock-up of a data quality issue monitoring report is on the screen now, and this is basically some of the information that you'll need to capture on your data quality issue monitoring tool. You may need to add additional details depending on the complexity of your data systems or the size of your information, but this is sort of the type of information that we do need to capture, and a sample of this template is available on the download that is available, so you can take this information and modify it for your own purposes, use it to build your own data quality issue monitoring, and stay on top of the data quality issues that you may be encountering. Next we have our gap analysis. And many of you who are involved in healthcare improvement initiatives probably recognize the term gap analysis already. And in our healthcare improvement initiatives, a gap analysis is a way that we can document our current state, outline our future or desired state, as well as document our strategies and approach for achieving that future state. So really the same holds true for a gap analysis for data quality improvement. When we come across a data quality issue that can't be fixed right away with a quick fix or a quick instruction to the user or something along those lines, we need to do a bit of a gap analysis. And when we do a gap analysis, sort of the steps that are involved with this are to group our data quality issues together, because very often when we see multiple data quality issues being reported or cropping up, they may be related to a single or a few root causes. So by grouping them, we get a sense of how many different types of issues that we are dealing with. Then with the gap analysis, we can determine the impact on our business and assign the priorities. So if we have a minor data quality issue that happens sometime and has minimal impact on the business, maybe we bump that down our priority list compared to something that has a large impact on our business and is impeding our ability to make decisions. At this stage, we may want to identify possible mitigation strategies, although in the next session or the next section of this presentation, we're going to talk a little bit more about mitigation strategies. But key also is to assign responsibility to an individual, because if we don't have responsibility assigned as well as timelines for completion, a lot of times, like other projects, these will get bumped to the back burner, or other priorities will crop up. So these need to be assigned to people to at least investigate and help identify what possible action needs to be taken. So once again, this is a sample gap analysis, and a version of this is also available on the handout that maybe you want to look at. But this sample contains really the most essential elements of a gap analysis that you would need for data quality. And if you take this, you may actually wish to modify the information being collected depending, once again, on the needs of your own organization. But really, you know, the basic here is you want to be able to identify the current state of our data quality issue, identify what the priority and the impact of that is, what is our future state, which usually is, no data errors, for example. If at this stage we can identify a possible mitigation strategy, then we may want to document what our mitigation strategy is. And who is it assigned to? Is it our eHealth team or a program team that needs to look at the data quality issue that we've got, as well as a target date? So by using a gap analysis like this, it allows us to take a more comprehensive look at our data quality issues as they arise, and prioritize them, and come up with well thought out team-based approaches to be able to address these data qualities, once again, so that we can protect our investment in the data and the information that our decision makers rely on to run our healthcare organizations or to make clinical decisions. So at this stage, I would like to pass it over to Melanie to offer some of her reflections.
Great, thanks, Trevor. As I'm chatting, I just wanted to point out that there was a couple specific questions in our chat function, probably directed to Trevor, so I'll get you to take a look at those, Trevor, and maybe just type your responses back. And I'm just going to go back to the previous slide on the sample of the data quality gap analysis, because I think this is really a great example of how data quality, both monitoring and the mitigation strategies, can involve a real team approach. And I was just noticing some of the chat feature. We have people from different kinds of departments, and we had a couple people who are from logistics departments and decision support departments, and they said that, yeah, very much they have some monitoring functions, and they have some frameworks they use for monitoring. And then we had a couple people that I just noticed had quality improvements in their title, and I just think that that's a nice blend of the people that we really need to bring in, as well as the operational people who actually do the work where the where the data is drawn from. So it just made me really think that when I see this example on your second line, that from the emergency program, it's such a good way to outline that the data steward needs to be working with people from the emergency program to really understand what the current state data quality issue is, and what the impact about it is, and then working with them to decide how that can be fixed, as opposed to it just coming sort of from the decision support team. seems to take a nice team approach where the people from the emergency program are really involved in the discussions about how they can help improve that data quality, and then ultimately it'll be more useful for them in their decisions. And I just really wanted to highlight that for the quality improvement people on the line like I am, I think you'll recognize a lot of that language that Trevor used, and it's interesting to see how data quality becomes a quality project in and of itself. So he talked a lot about understanding trends over time and what we can learn about that, and doing a root cause analysis to really understand the underlying issue, and then bringing the people in to discuss about what the proper mitigation strategy could be, and making sure that everyone's roles and responsibilities are really clear in terms of the mitigation strategies. And I just think that's good data. That's just good quality improvement right there. So it's interesting to see the corollary between data quality and quality improvement. So yeah, that's my reflections, and I will turn it back to you.
I just want to get back to one of the questions then. And I think one of the questions you might have been talking about is a question here that says, could you differentiate between user error versus improper data validation on input? And I can certainly give you an example on that. So, for example, if we're entering a patient's date of birth, we may have data validation rules which will check to ensure that the age is within appropriate range. So if we enter in a year, for example, of 1825 or something like that, and our patient is 190 years old, for example, the system will flag that obviously, and we'll be able to say, you know what, I don't think that this is a proper age, and it will detect something like that, and it'll prompt the user to enter in a proper year of birth. But what these validation rules can't detect is other sort of transcriptions. And so, funny case in point is, my birthday is March 1st. I'll keep the year secret, but my birthday is March 1st, and on January 3rd, I got a birthday notice from my gym saying, happy birthday, I hope you had a great day. So what they did is they switched the day and the month when they were inputting. So rather than, a 1 and 3, it was a 3 and 1, or the other way around. So validation rules really can't pick that up because they don't really know what date and month you were born on, for example. So that would be one example of a difference between, say, what the validation can pick up on the user side and what user error. So there's always creative ways in which users can get around the validation rules that we have on our systems. So what we're going to do then is continue on to our next part of the presentation. But once again, we're going to ask for some of your feedback. And what we would like to do is know from you, what are some of the ways in which your organization improves the quality of its data? So if once again you could type your response into the chat box, we'd love to be able to hear from you. What are some of the ways that your organization works to improve the quality of its data? And we'll see how what we're going to talk about in this next session aligns with some of the comments that you folks have made. So once we have actually identified where we have data quality issues and what in fact those data quality issues are, and in fact we might have even started to think about what we need to do to fix those issues, then we move on into the improve stage of the data quality cycle. And being able to move from the management and monitoring phase into the improve phase requires that the necessary resources are in place and that organizations have the policies in place that actually make ensuring data having high quality is a priority of the organization. And this is important to the organization because we know that good data is vital to effective decision making. And we also know that data quality issues may have negative consequences ranging from reduced or impaired decision-making ability all the way through to decreased patient quality and patient safety, which are things that we want to be able to avoid at all costs. So we're going to move into a discussion about some mitigation strategies. How can we mitigate some of these data quality issues? And just so that we're clear on the term, mitigation strategies are those controls, rules, and processes that can enable an organization to identify and address data flaws before they cause negative business or clinical consequences. So I think it's safe to say that where we focus our improvement efforts is an extremely important factor in data quality. So we have a little chart here sort of ranging from data input through to data processing and our data output. I'm pretty sure we've also all heard of the phrase garbage in, garbage out. And so we want to avoid the garbage out. So if we want to avoid the garbage out, we need to try to prevent incorrect data from entering our system in the first place, or at least prevent incorrect data from making its way through to the analysis stage. So since a lot of data quality issues that we see actually involve things like transcription errors or other input errors, it makes sense that we want to focus on the input of data. Oh, by the way, this chart here that you see obviously shows that we have a decreasing preference from fixing data on the input side versus the outside. But when we look at data input, this is the input, or this occurs at the source system level. So this is where we have hands to keyboard, people inputting information, and some of the mitigation strategies that we have for this would be data input validation rules so that we can catch age ranges that are inaccurate, or blood pressure, or any sort of vital sign, or anything that we enter. Where possible, we like to have validation rules so we cannot enter in information, or we reduce the likelihood of information being entered that is flawed. As well as, this is where we focus on end user training. So if end users know how to use the system appropriately and they're fully trained on it, then we will see fewer data errors caused by, say, omissions or incorrect use of the system. So we've got some of these really great clinical documentation systems, for example, where we've got drop-downs and checkboxes and stuff where we can get some really great codified data. But on the other hand, if the users aren't really trained how to use that information, we may just see our narrative boxes be, where the whole story is told there, where we don't have any of the codified data, and we have information which is difficult to access in pure text form, as one example. So we want to focus our efforts on ensuring that the data that goes into the system is as clean and valid as possible. The next stage, the data processing stage, may be relevant if your system has what's known as an extraction, transformation, or load, or other similar process that transfers data from maybe your source clinical system into a data warehouse or some sort of system that, or database where you can access the data for your own reporting. And so this processing level happens once information has made its way into the system. There's algorithms and code that can, and procedures that can run on the database that look at information and sort of as a bit of an intelligent system can cleanse our data or transform data if there's obviously information that is incorrect. It can help us flag missing values or data that is mandatory, and so that it can be flagged as needing to be re-input, for example. And a lot of this involves having to go back and maybe fix data manually at the database level, or like I said, automating some of the formatting so that we have consistently formatted data. And then finally, at the reporting level, or the analysis and statistical level, once the data has made its way through, there isn't really that much we can do. Some things, some common strategies that I use from a reporting level is I'll just sort data in a spreadsheet if that's what we're looking at, so that we can try and, group, make, say, ages that are out of range or other values out of range, sort of sort to the top or the bottom of the spreadsheet so we can have those visually identified. We may be able to filter values that are out of range if we're doing a query for pulling information across into our report. One thing we're going to talk about in a little bit is putting confidence intervals on charts. So if you know that you have a certain range of data which is valid, then we can put those on the charts. So either way, it gets progressively more challenging to improve and fix the data once we get poor quality data into the system at first. So that's why we want to focus on input at the input stage where possible. So this slide here is pretty much a recap of what I had mentioned. So we know that data quality is more than the work of a single analyst, and it takes an organizational effort to ensure that data quality is maximized so that we can protect our investment in the data. So some of the things that we can do as organizations is to ensure that all the users understand the importance of high quality data and the impact of poor data quality. So sometimes we see that frontline nurses or clinicians, don't really see their job as entering data, but if they can recognize the impact in terms of how this data is used to improve quality, improve safety, then they know that they have a very important role to play in getting information into the system appropriately. But helping them out with that is to, from an organizational perspective, promote workflows and processes that enable end users to get data into the system. So if we put computer systems near where work is being done, and if we design computer programs that are easy to use, or if we build computer access time into workflows, then it enables the frontline users to enter data in a way that's more perhaps careful, more accurate. When we're actually working on improving the data, like I mentioned, we want to focus our most important data first. Once we can get our most important data of a high quality, then we can start to work on other tiers of data that are maybe less important or important to other areas of the organization. And part of this then is identifying, involving all the stakeholders, which involves the end users, the database and system administrators, the decision makers, the analysts. Everyone has an important role to play in data quality, whether it's on the input side from the end users, whether it's the database administrators who need to develop the tools to improve data during that data transformation stage, or if it's the analysts who need to understand where we have data quality issues so that they can take that into account when they're building a report, or if they can at least flag that to the end users. And perhaps one of the most important things we can do as an organization is to initiate a data stewardship program which actually helps move these processes along. So if we look at a data stewardship program then, data stewardship is critical because at a high level, data stewards are the primary people responsible for keeping the data management system going, so we get out of break-fix mode. And we have a systematic approach for managing and improving data quality. So some of the key responsibilities of data stewards include working with the stakeholders to identify and document data usage and quality requirements, evaluating our data quality, identifying where issues exist if we're not meeting our quality targets, as well as making appropriate recommendations in which data we need to focus on to improve, or what some mitigation strategies are. Data stewards help ensure that modifications to the data storage and management are in line with our accepted policies and procedures. So when we're, is the data going in, are we storing data according to the way that we expect it to be stored? Are we living up to our responsibilities as stewards of this data, particularly, are we protecting privacy and the security of the data? So all these things, when it comes to storage of data, data stewards play an important role in ensuring that we're doing it responsibly and maintaining that data quality. Part of that as well is ensuring that the data is used properly by the end users and that it's accessible, so that, you know, not only are we storing information in a secure way and using it responsibly, but that we're reporting on things in a responsible way, and we're not, you know, we're not stepping outside of our bounds as analysts and using data in inappropriate ways. And finally, data stewards are involved with the establishment of enterprise-wide standards for data quality and usage. And once again, this helps keep data quality management as a cycle, as a high priority organization. As a high priority to the organization. So as Melanie had mentioned earlier, one of the things that we want to do is treat quality improvement as you would any other improvement initiative, which means that we would have defined and focused data quality improvement goals, and we would have our established metrics and success measures that we would have talked about in the defined stage in the previous seminar. And we want to look at data quality from a proactive, reactive, and ongoing set of data quality processes. So using our data quality monitoring to fix data quality issues in the early stages, to prevent larger scale issues from occurring, and relying on our data quality metrics then to trigger an appropriate action and mitigation strategy. So if we start to see, once again, data quality for one of our key data items trending negatively, we know what action we need to take and when we need to take that. So when we're, in one of the previous slides I mentioned about, you know, being responsible, you know, with the data that we use, and part of that is always keeping in mind that the purpose of collecting data and improving data quality is to help us improve the quality and safety of care for patients. So we need to ensure that the data that we have is good enough for this purpose, and that we're focusing on, you know, putting our efforts into improving the data that is going to help us achieve these goals of improving patient quality and safety. It doesn't mean that other data isn't important, but we need to make sure that we know what we need to focus on. Also, pursuing perfect data quality will result in diminishing returns on data improvement efforts. So we need to know what the data is going to be used for and how good the data quality needs to be. And one example of this would be, you know, are we doing clinical research or are we using this information for clinical improvement? So if we look at data quality and usability then, this series of graphs highlights the impact that poor data quality and the uncertainty introduced by poor data quality can have on our ability to make decisions. So if we use this example of emergency department length of stay, the graphs show that length of stay is in hours on the vertical axis and our week is on the horizontal axis. So if we have a margin of error in our length of stay data that is, for example, 5%, as illustrated in the first graph, we can see that the error bars on the data points sort of show this margin of error in our data points of 5%. So even on the first graph, even if your data shows that you've got steady week-over-week improvement in the length of stay, you still maybe can't be 100% confident that you're witnessing an actual improvement. And this is because all the change is still occurring within the range of the error that we see. So you may be trending, but if you have a wide margin of error on your data, you can't be totally confident that is, in fact, a true trend. So what this means then, as per the middle graph, that you need to have a much larger improvement that spans outside the range of your uncertainty in the data. So we can see that the trending starts to go outside the range of all the error bars. And so, you know, in this case, we can be a bit more confident that we're actually seeing an improvement because we have had a larger improvement that sort of exceeds the bounds of our uncertainty. But unfortunately, not all improvement efforts can be so lucky to demonstrate such a dramatic improvement that we would see in the middle bar. In the middle graph. Most improvements are much more modest, at least over a short time period. So then what our last graph shows, then, that if we can decrease the uncertainty by decreasing the margin of error in our data, so say, for example, we can be confident that our margin of error in our length of stay ranges within the 2%, we can be confident then that our more modest changes to length of stay do in fact represent an improvement. So the bottom line is the impact on our ability to do quality improvement is that if we have data that gives us a certain amount of uncertainty, we need to see bigger improvements sort of to overcome that uncertainty. But if we can improve the quality of our data, we can still be confident that any modest improvements that we're seeing or trends are in fact actual trends and not just artifacts or manifestations of poor data quality and variation. So in summary then, high quality data is necessary to inform healthcare improvement practitioners and decision makers. Data quality must account for performance and improvement goals, our processes and workflows, and business rules in addition to the data field definitions and validation rules. This is a lot of stuff which encompasses data quality. We do not want to let perfect data be an obstacle to using the data that we have for improvement, but we do want to make best efforts to ensure that the data that we have is as high quality as possible. And overall, organizational commitment to data quality via the policies and procedures they develop help us ensure the sustainability of our data quality and the responsible use of the data that we have. Melanie, I can turn it over to you.
Thanks, Trevor. I just also asked you if you could just type in the chat function just another summary of how you calculated the data quality error bars, because I think that was a really great visual for people to sort of understand the impact of on improvement trends. I just wanted to comment on this slide again because as a quality improvement person, this is a lot of times where I get asked questions about how can we be making decisions on data when we know there's data quality issues. And I think it is really important to absolutely monitor, understand, and improve your data quality. At the same time, I think, how you said, if we're waiting for perfect data, it's going to be an obstacle. So I think that what can happen there is to do those things in parallel, to understand that, yeah, our data quality is being improved, but in the meantime, understanding what decisions we can make based on our confidence level in that data. And I'm actually just going to flip the slide back because I wanted to speak to this slide. So oftentimes when I'm presenting results of improvement initiatives, that is a common question I get is, what is the quality of the data and how sure can we be on these results? And so I just want to give our audience some insight into how I typically respond to that question. And I don't always have the tools that Trevor has provided in terms of being able to objectively measure our data quality. But at the same time, I always ask the question about are we confident enough in the data that we can take some action? And I always ask the question, even though there's data quality issues, do you think that once we get that improved, that our interpretation will actually change in terms of there being a trend or not? So sometimes I think what will change is the exact values that we see, but sometimes I don't think that the distinction in the values is going to actually change our interpretation in general of whether there's a trend or not. So those are some of the questions that I ask back when I get questions about data quality and what we can really tell from it. So I think it's just important to do those things in parallel. To yes, improve data quality, but B, make decisions that you are confident enough in and keep moving improvement forward rather than waiting for all the data quality issues to be fixed first.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's an ongoing cycle, and sometimes we only identify data quality issues once we've started to use it in an improvement effort, right? Especially some data that may not be looked at that commonly suddenly we have an improvement effort that looks at, some new interval or new process, and suddenly we look at the data and it's like, wow, this is really messy.
Yeah, so that was all the reflections I had. We had some really good indications from the different teams about the way that they have built in data quality into their work. We had one team say that they're just starting their systematic way of looking at data quality, so I'm sure that they'll be able to take lots of lessons from this and apply them. And yeah, I'll just turn it back to you then. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for those reflections. I find that, even though we're getting underway in our organization doing more reporting on data quality and capturing or identifying when data quality issues occur, even though we're systematizing it and making it a problem, or sorry, not making it a problem, making it a priority, still we do get blindsided by sometimes because we just have so much data and so many users out there who input information into our source systems that sometimes we do get surprised in terms of some of the data quality that we look at. And so sometimes, when we look at those three stages, the input, the processing, and the output, sometimes when you know that you've got a data quality issue that has made it through to your data, case in point, we were looking at some bed utilization data a little while ago, and I kid you not, we had one or two records where we had a negative million minutes in a single location, and we didn't even know that the way their system worked that it was even possible to get a negative value. So this is one example of how something like that props up when we're doing our analysis of the data. Certainly now it'll trigger us to more closely monitor those intervals on an ongoing basis. But then, when we do a report on that data to our stakeholders who are doing the quality improvement project, what we can do is we can say, look, this is what we've identified. We know that we probably have some data quality issues, and we can try filtering different data so that the extreme values are removed. But then working with them to work with their staff, and once again, as we fix the input, then we can see a bit of a smoothing in our extreme values. So it is a process that's ongoing, and the more that we can, have the policies in the organization that make it actual responsibilities for data stewards to stay on top of data quality, the better our data quality will be. I think that's it from my perspective. If there's any specific questions, Kay, that you've got or anything you would like to bring up.
Thanks very much, Trevor. It looks like we do have a question coming in from Shelley Curry, who's asking your experience of having these kinds of discussions with the research community and any lessons learned there. So both Trevor and Melanie, if you have any reflections on that, certainly this has really been focused on data quality and looking at improvement initiatives. And certainly there's sometimes, I think, folks can experience that tension in terms of data quality when it comes to improvement versus research. So both of your brief reflections on any lessons around how you effectively communicate, what some of your experience in that has been would be great.
I can start off with that one. I do quite a bit of work with our clinical researchers, and we, when we work on a project, for example, that's going to be published or used to guide some sort of treatment, we go way in depth in terms of data quality. So we look at, identifying what the ranges of the data are, what percentage of data we expect to be outliers. We have very careful thought in terms of, and in-depth discussions in terms of what data we decide to throw out and which data we decide not to throw out, what we can keep. So it's really a much more in-depth process where we talk to the researchers, we look at things like what our sample size requires us to do, what the effect size is of the particular interventions we're looking at, and then we would make a decision on there. So the data quality reporting that we talked about today certainly does not go in depth enough for the clinical research that we would support, but it does help us provide some high-level highlights in terms of where some data quality issues may be, and then it helps that discussion as we engage with the clinical researchers to quantify, the data quality in the particular ways that they need. So yeah, it's very much a discussion, an iterative process, and sort of a deep dive in terms of what actually counts as valid and not.
Thanks very much, Trevor. And Melanie, over to you. Just briefly, any reflections on that question from Shelley?
Sure. My discussions, and again, there's always a bit of a different approach when you look at the work that clinical researchers do versus people who are applying the science. So that's often a conversation I have is just delineating different purposes of data. So in clinical research, the purpose of data is really to advance clinical knowledge of effectiveness of treatments, and that requires a certain or a different level of data analysis. When we go to collect data that helps us apply that, that turns away from research into something that we call implementation science, and that has its own unique set of issues and problems that are actually better dealt with statistics under the rubric of statistical process control. So I often will provide that terminology to people and help them delineate the distinctions between what the data is being used for and how we treat the data with different methods. And yeah, a lot of the clinical researchers have really, really strong statistical backgrounds, and I often provide them with some of the more statistical papers on SPC, or statistical process control analysis, and they really they can dig into that and understand why we use the methods that we do.
Fabulous. Well, thank you to both for your reflections, and to everyone on the line today. As we end the call, I want to thank all of you who joined us throughout this three-part series on Data Bootcamp and today. Also, we hope that you find the supporting material that we've also circulated valuable, and would love to, of course, hear your feedback for our future webinar design. So please do take a couple of minutes to fill out the survey that we'll provide you, and let us know your feedback, both on today's sessions and then coming up. We'd love to hear from you on the series overall. Now, we do encourage you to sign up for our newsletter for a full listing of all our upcoming webinars. On February 16th, our Free on Call is focused on spreading family presence policies to accelerate healthcare improvement through the Better Together campaign. So we encourage you to take a look on our website or our newsletter for a full list of sessions and register. Again, I can't emphasize our thanks to both Trevor and Melanie for your excellent presentations today and throughout the series. Your reflections, your insights on dealing with some of the sticky issues around working with the data. Also behind the scenes, Kelly and Sheena, for your diligence to make this webinar happen. At this point, I'd now like to conclude today's webinar and the 2015-2016 Data Bootcamp series. Thanks again, and we look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this does conclude your conference call for today. We thank you for your participation. You may now disconnect your lines and have a great day.